Well, good morning, and it's the morning wake up show. It's that wonderful time in the morning where you're not sure whether you can do this. You're not sure whether you want to wake up or whether maybe you want to go back to sleep. Yeah, that time where you say, well, maybe you need to do a little bit more healing, go through more of that healing mode before waking up. But there's life that just doesn't necessarily, allow you to do that. Of course, now that having been said, there's a series of requirements in life that say, you just have to move forward step by step this way because life continues in a different direction than the one that probably makes the most sense. It's odd how life works that way. But it just does. So we get to wake up and we get to start another day where we seem to be surrounded by, all sorts of strange thinking patterns where many people, they think too small in life. We have enormous labor available to go to work immediately and build brand new hard assets. But we have too many people in this country and government that think too small. This is a tremendous problem, as we have various factors that have been changing over the course of the last 2 decades. We have factors in the larger cities that have more and more of a demand upon the average citizen for taxes, permits, fines. We have statistical average fines that were determined once. I was reading a piece that somebody put out and was showing that California's average per citizen layout for fines, taxes, and permits as a statistical average for the average citizen came to over $60,000 a year. In other words, the demand for people to pay a traffic citation or to pay a normalized everyday charge, a permit, a fine that would be attached to the average citizen, not necessarily to the average super businessman. And so they statistically averaged all these charges out and divided it by the population, and they came up with over $60,000 in cost as a minimum charge to be a citizen in California. I thought that was a fascinating concept, since immediately the first thing that came to my mind is, what about all the people who have an income that is less than that? How can this possibly make sense? How can they run around basically putting more demands on people's lives than what their basic income might be? Now, part of my conclusion is the problem is a lot of these people, they think too small. Now, some of them think pretty big. We've got a lot of problems that bring about very serious criminal charges, actually. So if we continue about a lot of the different things here that are important, we can look at, some of these areas where crimes are being committed. We have retired people and disabled people in this country, in some particular states, such as California, where people are forced to pay basically, on average, more than $500 per year additional on their electrical bill, where this money exclusively goes to people with higher incomes to buy electric cars. And it's been this way for, well over a decade, almost 2 decades now. So these people, segments of the poorest area of society that cannot qualify for electric cars, basically have been forced to pay this over $500 a year, where it is focused directly to wealthier people. Well, that's unconstitutional. That's part of an oligarch type system, and that is highly unconstitutional. In fact, the violations can be looked upon, as some other people have explained it in the past, about 3 different ways. Some of which are, well, they violate the Constitution in such a way that it's a death penalty. It's really interesting that our original Constitution has these great valued high points in them that make sense. So we have these people, 10 years, if somebody was forced to do it for a decade, that's $5,000. Wow, there's a lot of people that might just go buy a car for $5,000. There's people who are on disability that would say that their entire budget for a car is less than $5,000. So we have the government making people poorer in order to enrich people who are, well, already with a serious situation where they qualify for much better lives financially. So into this we have these laws that are being broken in the Constitution. And remember that the AG's office in California of Kamala Harris did not see these things. She did not step up and champion and say, wow, that's unconstitutional. I think I need to protect the civil rights of these people so that they're not basically forced at gunpoint or forced to have their utilities shut off because they can't afford to pay money to rich people to buy electric cars. This is something that you would consider a form of a heinous crime. And we have Kamala Harris, who was the AG in California, completely out of touch with this reality. These calls by people to say, can you stop this? Can you fix this? Can you protect the people? And this did not happen. It was a statewide charge item. So interesting, Joe Biden, he didn't see this, he didn't fix this. Neither did Trump. Trump didn't see this, Trump didn't fix this. But please keep in mind that it's always been part of my presidential runs since I began setting up to run for president in 2005. So they were part of my 2008 campaign. Again, Obama didn't see this, Obama didn't stop this. Obama did not step up and say, in this area, I'm going to protect people's constitutional rights. And look at this significant portion of cash, which for some people now basically is coming up on that area where we're going to be looking at 2 decades. That's $10,000 extracted from some of the poorest members of our society to enrich and make more efficient wealthier members of our society. So this has always been part of my campaign. Please keep this on your scorecard as you're keeping points and scores. Now we have some other areas that are really important to understand as well. So to mention, by the way, the taxation upon disabled and elderly people unfairly, which is a constitutional violation, to give money to wealthier people is also endangers people's lives. People have lost their lives. And I'll protect your life. because as president, I would immediately move to prosecute this. Because as president, I can also protect the Constitution of the United States. Which means I wouldn't have to wait for the Justice Department to adopt the item. I could take action immediately as the president to protect your life, to protect your wallet, and to get you immediately compensated. So frankly, the consideration here that poor members of our society that could definitely use more fuel efficiency as far as vehicles have been basically instead had extra burden upon them. And statistically, people have had their utilities turned off. People have died from exposure because of this overtaxation. So I look pretty hard on that and say, I'm certain that I can find a way that is completely legitimate to make sure that many people who are retired or disabled can basically be able to get a hold of electric cars, especially since they've been defrauded. They've been victimized. And the Constitution says that that is unconstitutional. So again, as president, that's something that I could end up ordering taken care of, because most times you have a triple damage situation legally. It's triple damages. So if you're at $5,000, your compensation would be $15,000. I guess now maybe you could afford to possibly buy an electric car, maybe a used one, something. Well, we could probably work something out. Unfortunately, the damage by other parties has slowed down my particular development for electric motor science, of which I have a lot of designs in, quite frankly. But it's been pretty hard. But let me move on. Let's go on to another item here. Let's talk about cold relief medicine. Basically, we've had medicines that were on the shelf for, basically 75 years that have been proven to be reasonably safe. These types of over-the-shelf medications help you with your symptoms. They dramatically reduce symptoms. They're a higher quality symptom reducer. Some of these products actually slightly enhance your immune system. They're also immune system boosters. But they've been banned, basically. They've been removed from shelves. And the reasoning behind this pretty much kind of sort of started in California, where someone stepped up and they grandstanded and said that they thought that 8 or 14 people a year were killing themselves because they were mostly stealing these types of over-the-counter medications and processing them into some form of a mix stretcher for other types of narcotics. And in some instances, they were able to even process certain types of so-called narcotics. Well, this was a horrible mistake. Many of us saw this to begin with. At least I saw this as a form of lunacy. I immediately saw it for what it was. I says, "This is ridiculous. This is taking rights away from citizens to be able to obtain necessary items over the shelf at any given moment that would be necessary in our lives." So subsequently, we have people that would be driving down the road and they would have these sneezing and snotting fits, and it'd be rather gross. You actually had people after the medicines were basically banned, cut back, taken off the shelf, where they actually they actually wrecked their cars because they got in these horrible sneezing fits and they just had this snot all over themselves. It's very distractive to have that happen. And that's solely because they could no longer get a hold of symptom relief medication. So immediately the effect was hitting people's wallets. You have these little teeny tiny statistics involving accidents, involving things that happened because people were distracted because of this horrible function of your body that would occur that, gee, my goodness, it's kind of hard to control that one. And it was really gross. It was really gross. Now, some of us complained about this and said this is ridiculous. You can't do this to people. Look, this is going to be disastrous. You can't do this. This is going to increase sickness all over the state. This is not a good thing. This is going to end up killing people. This so-called grandstanding act that somebody's coming up saying they're going to stop somebody from processing narcotics. And please understand the physics of this. It costs way more money, way more effort to basically take these over-the-counter items and process them into street drugs. Costs way more money, way more effort. There's virtually no logic to this at all. So we have people's immune system being lessened. This of course increases the problem with disease. We have a dramatically increased spread pattern involving colds and flus. And of course then we had COVID. So COVID hit, and people that would normally have a buildup in their cars, on their shelves at home, at work, of these far better symptom relief medications, didn't have them because they had been removed permanently from the shelves, and other types had been dramatically reduced. So the best symptom relief medication was now gone, basically. And those of us who complained to AG's office in California, again, that would be Kamala Harris's era. So she didn't see this. And of course Trump didn't see this either. Yeah, Trump could have restored over-the-shelf medications to people's lives. He didn't do it either. My campaign all along has been, no, we're going to restore that. This policy is murderous. It's going to kill people. We have to immediately do something about it. This is a state of emergency item. That's always been my position involving certain types of over-the-counter medications. And by the way, that's not the only one. There are other ones that people need to be able to get their hands on. There's types of medications that are needed for people who have animals, that they need to be able to get these items at an affordable rate. And that's also always been part of my policy. So COVID hits. We jump into COVID, and what happens is we have a dramatically increased spread pattern. And there's a translative set of mathematics that you do to come up with the answer. And the first year, it's way over 9,000 people extra are dead because of a dramatically increased spread pattern. Not to mention the fact that these medications also boost your immune system. They actually do a boost, and of course that wasn't there. So this means that gestation times occurred faster, and it translates out to bodies, to dead people. And I would have to say, with all respect, that I was on this to begin with. I shouldn't have to be the one to stand up and apologize, but Kamala Harris should have been the one to apologize. As an AG, she didn't see this. She didn't protect the rights of citizens. She did not think wisely, scientifically, to be able to protect for possible disease spreading. So the pandemic hits, and we still have no apologies from the other current AGs. We still have no action to get back those immune system enhancers, and get these needed over-the-counter items, or what were over-the-counter items, back to being over-the-counter items. Get them immediately available. So over 9,000 people are dead in California. And in fact, because Trump didn't see it, there are other states that also followed suit and banned these items. So we have additional people who are also dead. We could have dramatically slowed down the spread of COVID if we'd taken emergency action, which I would have done as president. Trump didn't do it. Joe didn't do it. I would have done it. It's part of my platform since going way, way back to make sure that we immediately look at all of these historical over-the-counter substances. And that means go back and look. I'm talking about going back 150 years, even 200 years, reviewing items that were originally constitutionally your right to be managed as an over-the-counter solution, because it can be very important. So we have dead people, lots and lots of dead people, and the dead people roll, because of increased spread pattern in California, by my calculations, exceeds more than 10,000 people. And again, Trump didn't see this. Joe Biden didn't see this. Kamala Harris didn't see this. Kamala Harris did not protect the rights of citizens to begin with when she was AG in California, and she should have done that. She did not. I will, as president, I will immediately reverse that policy nationwide. I will prepare this nation to have immune enhancers placed back into an over-the-counter status in this country in order to dramatically increase the chance that citizens can have more immunity and be able to reduce spread patterns, to curb the spread of disease, and to get a better handle on the future of possible pandemics. So my policy, in effect, would save lives. There's just no doubt about it. So we actually have a system. If we're looking at prosecutors, I would immediately prosecute this to fix it. But we have some prosecutors that have been grandstanders, and they've been incompetent, and they've caused death on large scale. So when you look at Kamala Harris, she is directly connected to a series of death patterns. Please keep this in mind. It's very important. So we're still on that morning wake up. I'm still waking up. I'm not at my sharpest self here this morning. So we've got these other items that we need to deal with. I mean, we have systems where people think too small. That's part of my problem with people like Kamala Harris and, Mr. Convicted felon Trump. He thinks too small. He just thinks too small. So when you're looking at items like in California, for instance, you have a program that will pay half your mortgage. So you can buy a house up to $600,000, and $300,000 of that will be paid for if you're someone who has a perfect payment history. Now, this is an interesting item to say, why would the state say because you're rich and you have a perfect payment pattern that they'll pay half your mortgage? So that's a gift. That's $300,000. That's a $300,000 gift for some people. Then we have solar and all these other packages. You quickly find $400,000 in gifts, basically. And if you're really, really good, you should find over $600,000, which is what I had statistics on in the archive. That, of course, needs to be restored. That, of course, each and every minute that goes by, there's materials pertaining to national security that need to be retrieved. But there's this problem with leadership understanding about prosecuting parties that have committed crimes that are government employees. This is treason. This is treason. The Constitution describes attack upon museums and archives as something that comes with the death penalty. It's quite fascinating, actually. But again, we have a problem with leadership around the country. And again, part of it goes right back to the malfunctions of Harris. Well, we're not going to talk about Trump at the moment, how bad that would go. So if we look at many other states, and states like California, you have a system where money is continuously being extracted from poor people, disabled people, and being given to wealthy people. Again, constitutional violations. The complexity of this is quite enormous. And again, it goes into these areas that are defined by the Constitution as, well, death penalty areas. But for some reason, again, we don't have AGs that step up to protect the rights of citizens and get equality. They seem to be stuck with forms of screwballism. And when citizens point out that these parties have violated the Constitution and possibly the death penalty applies, their position is that it's not their job to protect citizens. It's not their job to protect candidates. It's not their job to protect voters. It's their job to protect the individual government employee, regardless of what they've done or regardless of how much damage they're doing. This is madness. That's not right. That's incorrect. And again, this goes right back to, well, Kamala Harris again, repeatedly, So, these items, understanding who's going to be president and who's going to do the best job to protect, well, your life, that would be me. And the person who's going to protect you from being financially ripped off, well, that would be me. And the person who's going to guarantee that you will be compensated, rapidly, again, that would be me. So yeah, we have all these people that do these things, and they take advantage of all of these statistics. Trump's been using AIs throughout, tapping into the statistics information. If you call up the state bar and you complain about something, they try to help you find an attorney. But all that data from people complaining about complaints to attorneys and all that other stuff, trying to get an attorney, all that data gets sold and gets turned into AI databases, and people purchase it. And that's one of the things that the Trump teams have been purchasing and tapping into, so that they would know demographically as they went along to each city what some of these problems were, so they could sit there and construct these speeches and talk about how people were being victimized and how the government's corrupt and all this stuff, because they're tapping into these databases that have all that information. And they can even, they could get more specific, localized facts to be able to adjust to it. So this is basically the art of stealing the facts about other people's victimization of their life, and then utilizing it for a script for somebody's personal memeism. Rather distasteful and lowbrow practice, in my view. So yeah, that's one of Donnie Boy's secrets. So now, me on the other hand, as I would get a hold of that type of a data, I would be working it into my future gigantic AI system I was building, to be able to help people's lives, to restore, to empower you individually, because in my view, all these other politicians and many of these business people, they've been thinking too small. See, for me, if a citizen is not at max production status, well, that's a great opportunity. That's a great opportunity to immediately think bigger. Bigger for, well, all the right reasons. I mean, if you're flipping burgers instead of building new hard assets, you are underutilized. So basic carpentry is something that, well, every citizen used to have that was, well, 12 to 14 years old. Goes back a long time. I mean, you can look statistically at the year 1750. You know, this is just as we're coming into founding our nation, and look at the longevity, 38 years of age. The average 12 to 14-year-old was building their own board foot equivalent of a two-bedroom house, you know, basically in 2 to 6 months. You know, I mean, an ongoing process, and this is something that was done. And yet other board foot equivalents, because you had to build fencing, you had to build animal enclosures, smokehouses, drying houses to dry things and keep bugs away from them. All these extra sheds and things and whatnot. But for some reason, we're banning people from building homes, and that means that there's a massive violation of the Constitution of the United States. And again, it leads right back. Camille Harris, she didn't protect the citizens' rights there. You know, boom, falls down again. I'll protect the rights of citizens. It's unconstitutional. In some place I had these wonderful statistics of how many ways that was violating the Constitution directly. And I will immediately restore those rights to citizens and financially have them back. As far as I'm concerned, all labor is backable. All labor, in fact, is bankable. That means that the individual citizen would have no rights to be discriminated against in any way, shape, or form, or for any reason whatsoever, respective to getting their carpentry skills back in line and begin, well, building their own homes with their own hands, if that's what they want to do. If that's what they want to do. Some people don't want to do that. They want to do something else. Well, you know, we're supposed to be a free country. So we've got these other items that deal with all kinds of ridiculousness in some of these states. California is very heavily regulated. There's a lot of areas where you're talking about vast sums of money are basically divested from citizens. This is something that's unacceptable. It's unconstitutional. There's a lot of things that, again, could be done about it, but unfortunately, one of the biggest problems is AG office problems. It goes back to Kamala Harris and other AGs not doing their job, not protecting citizens, not being in touch and understanding when people in government are violating the Constitution of the United States. You know, so as president, I would immediately prosecute these situations forward to be able to protect citizens and get your rights immediately restored. So with education in the California, Los Angeles area, that basically right about $500,000 for 13 years of schooling will be looked at completely different, a more professional understanding. We're going to put basically kids back to work. A good paying job, pays more than burger flipping. At first it starts out slower for them, but as they progress, they rapidly start getting a bigger paycheck. And having that, well, basically $500,000 available means that you can justify the leverage of the existence of that money in a series of, well, practical, legitimate, wise money management situations respective to loan levering to be able to assist these young people and being able to, well, build their own homes, involve themselves in construction projects. They'll end up with $1.2 to $1.5 million cash. That's if they sell out of their stuff. You know, they can keep some of it. There are different options. Maybe they want to rent them out, whatever. So if they sold everything out, they'd have a $1.2 to $1.5 million bank account. And their job skill set, because of the way I've modified all of these courses, will have them starting out at a pay scale of $200,000 a year. This is the design for Los Angeles. Now, of course, it's different in other areas of the country. I did not do every city, every county in the country. As president, I would guarantee that would get done. But, I had, limitations as to what I could do, especially when there's this massive amount of, illegal activity that has been occurring against me. There's so many parties that have committed crimes that are government employees. And again, it goes back to Harris not doing their job. When you bring forward items and say, hey, look, we have lower levels of government and justice system failing. This is a horrible collapse. It falls upon the higher order AG's office to fix this problem. And they don't want to do it. And again, these are criminal items, but they want to convert them to civil items. As president nationwide, I would ban the justice systems from taking criminal items and saying, well, we're just going to convert them all to civil and just basically tell a bunch of people, oh, well, we're engineering this into you pay for justice. Even though it's a criminal situation, we're abandoning you. That's not constitutional. I would put an immediate stop to that. My White House will immediately have a 24/7 access line to it. And among the situations that would be addressed, that would be that. Now, a lot of people don't understand the Constitution and special areas of the Constitution. I do. I understand about the president's power to make emergency courts, to address emergency needed expansion areas. And that would be immediately happening if I were president. Or I would say when I become president. I'm trying to set up 24/7 lines right now. These have always been part of my campaign, but again, because of attacks directly upon my campaign, my person, violent attacks and criminal attacks from parties that are government employees, that again, AG offices refuse to do the right thing and protect the Constitution of the United States by prosecuting government employees. Repeatedly goes back to Harris again and again and again, and also connects right to all of these current people as well. Harassment of a candidate, attack upon archives, very unconstitutional behavior of these various parties who are basically actively aiding and abetting. So, Kamala Harris's career is actually very horrible. People have tried to make it look really flowery. It was, the business about getting mandatory cameras on police officers, that was a nice item. Actually was. There were some nice items, but overall, the big long list of things that other people brought to them and that, should have been blatantly obvious to begin with to anyone who would be learned and be, have the constitutional mind instillment. The lack of constitutional mind instillment in people who are involved in law in some instances is inexcusable. So, this goes into a huge corruption thing. And Trump has made a lot of growth on this. He's constantly made jokes throughout his campaign history about these patterns of corruption, and go, this is true, that's true. And see, the sad part is again, that goes back to me talking about how you get a hold of certain statistics and the flaws of the system. But he had his chance and he didn't fix it. He had his chance and he didn't do it. He didn't take care of business. I'll take care of business day one. More people join up right now. We can take care of business right now. right now. We can get those 24/7 lines activated. We can bring those super AI items that I have and duplicate them massively and put them online, being able to immediately deal with this. We can bring some of the largest companies into play. I've already got a design set to bring 5 of the largest AGI companies online. These people out there running, they think too small. They have no idea. They have no clue what I designed in from all the way back since 2005. All of these designs for new types of chips that wouldn't even be able to be built without massive money put into it, for basically 20 to 30 years. And many of the chips even still that I have designs for, you can't make them today. Still can't do it. So that's something I have an interest that I'm trying to do. I have to admit that I do have private interest of items that I want to work more with. But again, it's hard to protect patents and copyrights when we have, all forms of prosecutorial areas that are insane. They're given schedules to run around and basically extract money from people it's kind of like Robin Hood, run around and rob from poor people and give to the rich. Lots and lots of that in our system. And again, we don't have people that have been using proper constitutional mindsets to understand things. And, because we needed to tremendously expand the constitutional mindsets and go beyond just the minimal justice system that we have, where we have an enormous amount of our justice system devoted to just dealing with people that are wacko. That doesn't bode real well with me because, you obviously have to deal with people that are wacko and violent, but people grandstand on it. They want to use that as a career item instead of that's just a standard item. That's what you were supposed to be doing to begin with. That was your job. It's not a grandstanding worthy item. But it happens. But see, then we have mass destruction of constitutional values, constitutional powers that don't get addressed. And again, as president, that's something that I would immediately take care of. So if we're keeping a list here, if we're copying, pasting the various items I'm talking about, and you copy and paste them and put them into AI, you will see repeatedly that my program comes up to be repeatedly the best program in modern history. AI has identified me repeatedly as having an economic recovery program that just for the first year starts out in this 3,000% minimum better plan than all of the other stimulus packages and bright ideas that all the other candidates have combined. So I'm a super candidate, and I understand how to deal with those areas of AI and how to deal with it's made the right way. It's overprotectionist. I understand it's overprotectionist. That's why you have to rework with the prompts to streamline things and get it cut down. Some people would say, "Oh, you're removing part of the wokeness." Yeah, but now keep in mind that's the proper way to design many of these items is in fact to have all these safeguards into it, because you have citizens with mental faculties that vary and expertise and training levels that vary. So you want this, straightening out how you do your prompt adjustments are of crucial importance, and those will come out more along as time goes on that way. So I'm ready to institute the largest system, 5 computers for every citizen effective immediately as a compensation factor. I immediately address many issues. The old style brilliant plan, once upon a time brilliant plan of the backdoor in every chip, that's going to end during my presidency. We are going to have to affect building all new chips, because they keep designing chips that are flawed because they want permanent backdoors. See, they want to look at terrorists. They want the permanent back doors. But there's documentary after documentary of horror stories of how this turns out. And by the way, pretty much all of your terrorist organizations have figured the workaround, which means they don't use certain equipment, certain chips anymore for certain communications. So there's almost virtually no logical reason to continue this recovery. What we do have is backdoor situations that are affected by cyber attackers on mass scales. So we have 1.4 billion cyber attacks a day, massive null zone, as these are NULL, null zones, to manipulate the stock markets, to negatively affect people's computer. So the backdoor problem has backfired in the most catastrophic, largest way in the history of the world, and you don't have government addressing this properly, in my opinion. I address this properly. As president, boom, I'm going to take care of business immediately. Again, 24/7 lines with my White House. The White House never shuts down. There are services directly available through the White House of a wide nature, a virtually almost unlimited category. And this has been my policy since 2005 to do, because it's just so easy, actually. Yeah, it's going to cost some money, but the bang for the buck you get out of it, oh, it's a bargain. It's a bargain. It's the idea of how to think bigger and larger and get every single citizen back to work building with their own hands. There's nothing like making $75 an hour, and I'm sure that every citizen's going to like being guaranteed new home construction loans, new specialty loans. A lot of people, they want different style of loan. Their idea of a home is a bit different. They want to have 2.5 acres of land, sometimes 5, and they want outbuildings, and they want a shop area and all this stuff. I understand this, and this is part of the plan. This is part of the plan for to be able to take care of people's needs, especially if they're more creative, if they've done more research, if they've done more education, especially self-education, and they're ready, and they'd have additional other requirements. They want to be able to have an affordable shop series of equipment financed on a 30. Again, that's part of my administration. I help take care of that. And that's something that's basically open to every citizen to be able to help them achieve that and work with that creatively. You can do graduated payment loans. There's a lot of ways to work with this, so long as the tooling, equipment, CNC, whatever it is longevous, because it holds its value at a more attractive rate. I have a lot of extended plans to deal with new technology enhancements, space enhancements. There's also a lot of programs that deal with apportionately recognizing the big land rip-offs that occurred. I'm going to be restoring land. I have the biggest series of projects to look at these various items and deal with many of these horrible horror stories that have occurred throughout the country. And my policy is don't think too small. Let's get everybody back to work. Let's get everybody to max production. Let's make sure that everybody has max opportunity concerning the building of new hard assets. It's a big item. So my model economically just really zooms. It zings. It moves. It is the biggest, best one in modern history. And it checks out mathematically. It checks out. It's a real big, huge winner. So this makes me the best choice. The statistical analysis of my plan has me being the best presidential choice in modern history for AI, economic modeling, for economic stimulus, for new home construction, for new education overhauling, for national security balances, for technology. You name it, I'm top of the list. I'm the big guy. So people need to think about this and stop going for these oligarchic caste systems, and you need to put your foot down and say, yeah, you want all your rights back, and yeah, you want to be able to build your own home again with your own hands. And and realize that I'm the best candidate. I'm the guy. You know, well, you got an ego. No, this is what comes out on the computer. This is what it says. Okay, you know, so I'm not interested in playing the beauty contest, the popularity contest. I'm interested in doing a job, and that job is for you, the American people, because I want to get on with this job and then move on to other things. So I want to thank you this morning for your time, and I hope that I've made sense, and I encourage you to deal with the scorecard unfolding to understand my plan. Just go over to the transcript area and just copy and paste that, and just go to OpenAI, go to one of these companies, just throw it right in there and start asking questions about what it is I've talked about and how the suggestions might work. Now, hopefully your OpenAI will be functioning properly and won't be hallucinating. Hopefully it won't give you a hard time. That can happen, getting it around there. But some of ours do work better. I will mention that they work better if you pre-train your system, if you critique your system with other instructions. So some people go, I can't get it to work right, or it doesn't this, it can't find that, it can't find references. You got to understand how to use it. There's a bit more to it. So you might have to watch some YouTube videos on how to use and do prompting and make sure you ask the right questions. So again, Michael Crosby, I'm running for POTUS 2024. Thank you for your time, and that is the morning wake up. Looks like it's 7:45.